You've prayed 1,000 times. Here's what he does. Not always what you asked. Not always when you wanted. Not always in the form that would have made your life easier to understand. But that is exactly why prayer becomes difficult for so many people. Because the deeper mystery is not whether human beings speak to God. We do. The mystery is what heaven does with words spoken in pain, urgency, confusion, gratitude, guilt, desperation, or silence. Some prayers seem answered quickly. Others seem to vanish into nothing. Some return in forms we almost miss. Others remain suspended so long that the soul begins to wonder whether anyone was listening at all. And yet prayer survives in humanity because something in us keeps believing that words spoken upward do not die in empty space. They go somewhere. They touch something, even when the answer is hidden, delayed, transformed, or terrifyingly quiet. The first hard truth is this: God hearing a prayer does not mean God responds the way we expect. Human beings often imagine prayer as a spiritual request system. Ask clearly, believe strongly, wait faithfully, receive directly. But real prayer is far more dangerous than that, because it is not only a request, it is exposure. Every prayer reveals what we fear, what we desire, what we worship, what we think we need, what we cannot control, and what we are becoming under pressure. That means the first thing God may do with prayer is not grant it. He may read it more deeply than we do. He may answer the wound beneath the words instead of the words themselves. And that is why some answers feel confusing. We ask for one thing while heaven addresses something older, as a deeper, and far more decisive than the surface request. Sometimes God answers a prayer by giving what was asked. That is the answer people love most because it is clean, visible, and easy to call a miracle. Healing comes. A door opens. Provision arrives. Protection appears just in time. The situation shifts. The burden lifts. These moments matter because they teach the soul that heaven is not indifferent. There are prayers that receive immediate mercy, and people remember them for the rest of their lives. But even these answers are often misunderstood. We think the miracle is only the outcome, yet sometimes the deeper miracle is that a person asked at all, that in the middle of fear, disappointment, or exhaustion, the heart still turned upward instead of collapsing inward. Sometimes the gift is not only that God moved, it is that the soul remained open long enough to witness the movement. But some prayers are answered with no, and this is where faith becomes difficult. Because a denied prayer does not always feel like protection. It feels like absence, a closed door, a silence that hurts more because it arrived where hope was strongest. Hell uses these moments well. She whispers that unanswered prayer is proof of indifference, that heaven listens selectively, that divine love is exaggerated by the desperate, but a no from God, if there is a God, may not be neglect. It may be refusal in service of a deeper mercy the person cannot yet see. Human beings are often sincere about what they want and profoundly blind about what it would do to them. A refused prayer can feel like betrayal until time reveals it was restraint. In some of the most painful silences in life only become intelligible years later, when the soul finally sees what it had been asking to enter too early, carry too soon, or survive without being transformed first. And then there is the answer most people misunderstand completely. Wait, not denial, not permission, delay, formation through time. This may be the hardest answer because waiting exposes everything impatience was hiding. It reveals whether prayer was communion or transaction, whether we wanted God or only results, whether trust can survive uncertainty. A waiting answer feels cruel when the need is urgent. But waiting is often where the soul is purified of fantasies it could not lose any other way. Heaven may delay, not because it has turned away, but because timing is part of the answer itself. There are prayers that cannot be answered honestly until the person praying has become someone different, until desire is cleaned, until motives are clarified, until character can carry the thing being requested without turning it into an idol, a weapon, or a substitute for God Himself. There is also a more unsettling possibility. Some prayers are heard, but not answered in the way the person expects, because prayer is not always changed circumstance first. Sometimes it is changed perception. A burden remains, but the soul becomes stronger beneath it. The pain does not vanish, but peace enters beside it. The loss is still real, but panic loosens its grip. The door stays closed, but clarity appears. In those moments, God may not remove the fire. He may alter what the fire is doing to you. This is why people sometimes say their prayer was answered, even though their situation did not improve outwardly. Something happened inside. A reordering, a strengthening, a strange stability that made survival possible when survival should have collapsed. The modern mind often misses this because it only counts visible outcomes. But some of the deepest answers to prayer are interior and therefore easy to dismiss unless you have ever been held together by something you could not explain. So does God hear every prayer? Maybe the better question is what it means for heaven to hear. Hearing is not always agreement. It is not always intervention. It is not always immediate rescue. To be heard by God may mean that no prayer disappears, even if not every prayer becomes the future we asked for. It may mean every cry is received into a wisdom that does not operate at the speed of our fear. Every whisper, every desperate bargain, every tired thank you, every angry sentence spoken through tears, every silence that could not become language. If God hears fully, then He hears not only what we say, but what we mean, what we hide, what we have mistaken, and what we will one day understand differently. That kind of hearing is more intimate than most people want, and more demanding than most people expect. Because it means prayer is not merely information sent upward. It is the soul becoming visible before the one it cannot manage. Maybe that is why prayer remains one of the most practical and most painful acts of faith, because it forces the human being to keep speaking before certainty arrives, to remain in relationship without control, to ask without demanding, to wait without proof, to trust without turning God into a machine that rewards correct spiritual behavior. Real prayer is not magic. It is surrender complicated by desire. It is hope mixed with confusion. It is love still speaking from inside disappointment. And that is exactly why it matters. Not because every prayer gets the answer we scripted, but because prayer keeps the soul turned toward heaven while life is still unfinished, still unclear, still breaking, still becoming. Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes no, sometimes wait. Sometimes transformation so quiet you only recognize it later. But none of those possibilities mean your prayers were wasted. They mean heaven may be doing more with them than your fear knows how to measure. And maybe the final mystery is this: the greatest answer to prayer is not always getting what you asked for. It may be becoming someone who can remain in love, trust, and truth, even when the answer came differently than you hoped. Many people pray to change their life, and sometimes God answers by changing the person who is living it. That can feel disappointing at first, because the ego wants outcomes more than transformation. But a granted request is not always the deepest mercy. Sometimes the deeper mercy is that prayer slowly undoes the illusion that control could ever save us. It teaches dependence without humiliation, vulnerability without collapse, and trust without guarantees. And if that is true, then prayer is heard not only when heaven changes the world around you. It is heard when heaven refuses to let your soul close, even in the middle of waiting. So if you have prayed 1,000 times and still wonder what He does, maybe this is the answer. He listens, but not superficially. He answers, but not mechanically. He delays, refuses, grants, reshapes, protects, and transforms according to a wisdom deeper than urgency. He does not always remove the pain that drove you to prayer, but He may keep that pain from becoming the thing that defines you. He may not always open the door you are striking with desperate hands, but He may stop you from entering rooms your future self would beg to escape. And He may not always speak in the language of instant clarity, But silence itself may still be part of how heaven works on the soul. Prayer does not control God. It places the human being inside relationship with the one who sees more than the request, more than the fear, more than the moment. And in that relationship, even silence can become an answer if it keeps drawing you deeper instead of driving you away. See you in the next video, where the questions only get darker.